I want to preach for a little while using the subject, He Picked Me Up, the story of Annie. He picked me up, the story of Annie. Ladies and gentlemen, it is quite interesting to note that 7 days ago, our New Rising Star church family, which happens to be known as Team Star, had the privilege, the honor, as well as the opportunity of traveling to the movie theaters for the specific purpose of seeing the new hit movie, which happens to be a musical entitled Annie. This particular movie chronicles the life of a young girl by the name of Annie who lives inside of a foster home alongside other girls whose dreams, goals, as well as their aspirations is to one day be adopted for the specific purpose of having their own loving family. What amazes me is not that these girls long for adoption, but what amazes me is their caregiver / guardian by the name of Mrs. Hannigan. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason that Mrs. Hannigan is absolutely amazing is because she finds herself in a precarious predicament. She's in a precarious predicament due to the fact that she's trying to care for foster girls in her present, while she's confused about her past. Ladies and gentlemen, that really doesn't mean much to you until you come to the understanding that Mrs. Hannigan used to be a member of the CNC Music Factory, which happens to be a hip-hop and R&B group that rose to the top of the Billboard charts in the late 1980s and in the 1990s. But allow me to pause to tell somebody that even though CNC Music Factory rose to the top of the Billboard charts in the 1980s and in the 1990s, the stint that Miss Hannigan had with CNC Music Factory did not last for long. In other words, the group rose to the top, but she did not rise to the top alongside of the group. And ladies and gentlemen, and so therefore, as a consequence, she's confused about what did not work out for her in her past. And because she's confused about what does not work out for her in her past, she mistreats the girls who happen to be in her presence. Ladies and gentlemen, there are several things that we learn from this character by the name of Mrs. Hannigan in this movie, which happens to be a musical entitled Annie. The first thing that we learn from Mrs. Hannigan, ladies and gentlemen, is that it is absolutely impossible to care for other people in the present while you're confused about your own past. I'm going to say that again. It is absolutely impossible to care for somebody else while you are confused about your own past. Whenever you call yourself caring for somebody else, but you've yet to get over your own past and what did not work out for you in the past, you mistreat the people who happen to be inside of your present. Ladies and gentlemen, there's somebody in here under the sound of my voice. Instead of you looking at Mrs. Hannigan, all of us need to take inventory and look at ourselves. Because many of us have mistreated our neighbors. Many of us have mistreated our families. Many of us have mistreated our friends. Many of us have mistreated our spouses. Many of us have mistreated our church members. And many of us have even mistreated our children. And you don't even know why you are mistreating other people. But allow me to pause to tell somebody, you can't care for somebody when you're confused about what's going on inside of your own life all at the same time. Sometimes you've got to heal from your past in order to be able to take care of somebody else inside of your present. Ladies and gentlemen, have you not considered that the only reason that Joseph in Genesis chapter 50 was able to treat his brothers with decency and treat his brothers with respect after they spit on Joseph, after they mocked Joseph, threw him into a pit and had him sold into slavery? Because, ladies and gentlemen, Joseph got over his past. Joseph got over his past, and the way that Joseph got over this past is through the gift of forgiveness. Joseph understood that unforgiveness is a weight, and if I carry the weight of unforgiveness in my life, it hurts me worse than it hurts the person who hurt me in the first place. And so therefore, as a consequence, Joseph understands in Genesis chapter number 50, when the land is in a famine and he has to face his brothers one more time, he's not able to care for his brothers in the present if he does not get over what they did to him in the past. Matter of fact, I really believe that Joseph just had to take a praise break and thank God for the way that his brothers treated him in the past. His brothers thought that they were kicking him in the butt, but they didn't even realize that every time you kick somebody in the butt, you are pushing them forward. Can I pause to tell somebody, had they never thrown him into the pit, he never would have been sold into slavery. Had he never been sold into slavery, he never would have been over Potiphar's house. Had he never been over Potiphar's house, Potiphar's wife would have never lied on Joseph. If his wife never lied on Joseph, he never would have been thrown into prison. Had he never been thrown into prison, he never would have had the opportunity to interpret the dream of the cupbearer. And if he did not interpret the dream, he never would have been over all of Potiphar's palace. And if he never got over Potiphar's palace, when the land was in a famine, he never would have been able to take care of his brothers. Ladies and gentlemen, can I pause to tell somebody, the people who mistreat you in the present think that they are doing you harm. But allow me to pause to tell somebody that they meant it for evil, but God has a way of turning it around and using it for my good. And ladies and gentlemen, because God is able to use my mishaps and my circumstance for my good, I don't have to be mad at nobody and I don't have to get back at anybody, but I understand that all things are working together for the good of those who love God and for those who are called according to his purpose. I dare you to look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, it's time to get over your past. It's time to get over a friend who hurt you. It's time to get over an ex who hurt you. It's time to get over a child who hurt you. It's time to get over a church member who hurt you. Whoever hurt you inside of the past, it's time to get over it, because they're not worth you holding yourself back from all of the blessings that God has ordained for you to receive inside of your life. I dare you to look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, it's time to get over it.